Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Edan, and I'm joined by Bonnie, Katie, and Leah talking about our one cool Indigenous gal. Bonnie already talked about Elizabeth Wanamaker Petrovich, but before we dive back in, let's get to know something kind of random about our gal pals. So... what do I want to know?
What do you want to know?
I want to know if any of you have ever been to a drum circle, a sweat lodge, a native ritual, a shaman story, or a indigenous tribal gathering, like a powwow.
Right. Ooh. I've been to a drum circle. It was in Savannah, Georgia. So it was one of those things where Savannah, down by the Savannah River, had a lot of meetings of different cultures. And it was outside of a Buddhist store that they had this drum circle. But it was this wonderful mix of cultures. And they were such a mix of cultures, I couldn't even tell you what the nationality was. But it kind of felt like the United Colors of Bennington. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like that ad. And I was really, at first I'm like going, oh no, I don't want to, participate or anything. But it's really weird. That rhythm makes your heart like get in sync with it. Your heartbeat starts getting in the same thing. And then the next thing you know, you're just absolutely entranced by it. So once, and I've always meant to go to another, go stay longer, have that be my intent. Because we were kind of passing through. But it did make me stay for like a half an hour because I really enjoyed it. So
nice.
I highly recommend a drum circle anytime you can get close to one.
Nice.
What about you ladies?
I have not, but I don't go places.
You don't like
things.
people. Right. It's fair. I mean, yeah, that's asking a lot.
But if you had an opportunity, what would you like to experience?
The drum circle, you just totally sold
it's
that
really
one.
good.
That sounded amazing, yeah.
It feels personal, but it feels connected. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like Burning Man, where there's too damn many people and too much peyote happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like you could close your eyes and experience the same thing being with a group of 4 people or 40 people. It was weird. It was good. Mm-hmm. Good weird.
Definitely intriguing, but I'm open. I want to hear about all of you guys' experiences too.
Dun, 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 dun.
As everyone looks to me. No, I have not done any of those things.
Didn't you do a thing in Greece with the firewalk though?
Yeah, well, that wasn't. I doubt natives were actually running that thing.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
But yeah, there was it was supposed to be a fertility, it was the summer solstice celebration thing, and there was a fire and you're supposed to jump over it to have good fertility.
Did it feel very whitewashed though? Or
I think it was just an excuse to have a bonfire on the beach.
All right,
it was not like
its intention was not spiritual.
Yeah, there was no cultural things about
right.
But no, I haven't done any of those things. I've been to the Idle Jorg. Like, I enjoy the Idle Jorg. I've been there. They have, at least before COVID, they had market. So they go all out, and that one's really good. And there was probably people playing music and stuff around, but not like a big thing.
Yeah.
But no, that was really cool because I wanted to go to that for like years, and I finally had that weekend off, so I could go for a couple hours. But yeah,
nice.
Well, I had a friend who was, she was from Michigan. She is unfortunately deceased. Her name was Teresa. Mm-hmm. Loved her. Yeah. She invited me to 2 of her sweat lodges. She had a sweat lodge built, of natural.
It wasn't like a yurt.
No, it was not store-bought or anything like that. She had a sweat lodge in her backyard. She lived in Speedway. And Loved it. Loved every minute of it. And miss her terribly. She was Anishinaabe, which is a tribe. Their tribal lands are part in Michigan and part in northern Indiana.
Okay.
But the reservation is in Michigan.
Gotcha. Oh, nice.
But yes, and totally a spiritual, like thing. I was so proud to be included.
Yeah,
you know,
it's an honor, absolutely.
And then she invited me back, so I must have behaved the first time.
Eden, don't behave. You're always invited back to everywhere you go. It does make me think, so I've done sauna. I've done sauna quite a few times because I'm very Scandinavian, so I love the sauna. It's always been like at a spa or something like that. But the sweat lodge always made me think, oh my gosh, I'll bet you my ancestry would love the sweat lodge experience because it's already part sauna.
Well, I mean,
but then in the spiritual,
to a lot of extent, you know, indigenous peoples have a lot of traditions and customs in common, even if they're not, you know, especially around these parts.
Weather related, you know what I mean? Heat and temperature and, you know what I mean? And moving with the earth and things like that. I mean,
and it's very grounding and it's very cleansing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. All right.
All right. So,
Sweet.
My gal pal.
Sweet. As I build my sweat lodge in my backyard and invite you all.
Okay. So, my
you got?
One cool gal pal is Sacheen Littlefeather.
Yes! I know that name.
Okay, so Sacheen Littlefeather was born on November 14th, so her birthday is coming up.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
In 1946.
Sweet.
So she'll be 75.
Hey.
She was born in Salinas, California, and her birth name was Maria Louise Cruz.
Oh, okay. Any relations to Thomas Maypoler Cruz III?
I do think so.
His name is Thomas Maypoler Cruz III.
No.
Anyway, go ahead.
And I don't think she's related to Penelope Cruz.
Oh, not the good Cruz?
You're right. Okay, so her father, Manuel Ibarra Cruz, was White Mountain Apache and Arizona Yaqui. Her mother, Geraldine Marie Barnett, was of French, German, and Dutch ancestry.
Ooh, look at that.
So in 1969, as an activist, she occupied Alcatraz Island.
Oh, because I talked about Wilma Mankiller, who was on there. Oh, nice.
Along with other members of the activist group Indians of All Tribes.
Yeah.
They were protesting against the U.S. government's resistance to native land claims.
Right, because nobody was using Alcatraz at the time.
Right.
So they tips.
Totally. So while she was participating in these Indians of All Tribes activities, she learned more about her Native American customs and identity from the elders and the other participants.
Perfect.
So after that, she changed her name from Maria Louise Cruz to Sacheen Littlefeather, because she wanted to reflect her indigenous heritage.
Yeah.
So in 1970, she won the Miss American Vampire Contest. Love it! Which was a promotion for the ABC TV series Dark Shadows, which was an American Gothic soap opera featuring vampires that aired from 1966 to 1971. So
I was not
Miss American Vampire.
Such a weird show. Such a weird honor.
Totally, but I'm so here for it.
I know, right? Exactly.
I love me some vampires.
Why not?
Yes. So, according to her website, SacheenLittlefeather.net, she began her acting career at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco, California. She basically has lived her whole life in that kind of Bay Area of Northern California.
Oh, nice.
So she attended the American Conservatory Theater in the early 70s and became known for 3 roles from films from the mid 1970s. So she was in The Trial of Billy Jack, which came out in 74.
Yeah.
Johnny Firecloud, which came out in 75, and Winterhawk, which also came out in 1975.
All right.
However, her claim to fame occurred at the 45th annual Academy Awards ceremony held in March 1973.
And this is how I know her.
Yes, this is how I think a lot of people know her.
Bring it.
So Marlon Brando, yes, the Marlon Brando, chose Littlefeather to accept/refuse his Oscar that he won for his portrayal of Don Corleone in The Godfather. He was up for the Best Actor in a Drama, and there were quite a few really great actors in that category year, and he won. But he wanted to bring some national attention to the treatment of American Indians in Hollywood and elsewhere, and he also wanted to bring attention to the 1973 siege at Wounded Knee, South Dakota, which is located on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where members of the American Indian movement occupied for 71 days to protest conditions on the reservation.
There you go.
That didn't really go very well.
It was
kind of terrible what happened
there. Yeah.
Anyway, so carrying this speech, written by Brando himself, Sacheen Littlefeather attended the Academy Awards dressed in full regalia, full Apache regalia. And she formally refused to accept on his behalf Brando's Oscar win. So, according to Academy Awards acceptance speeches database,
yes.
So the 45th Annual Academy Awards took place at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And the presenters for that award were a woman named Liv Ullman and Roger Moore.
Right,
yes,
James Bond himself.
That's Roger Moore. So Moore was the one holding the Oscar trophy, and she came up on stage, and then when he tried to hand it to her, she actually refused it. She didn't even want to touch it.
Yeah.
And so she had prepared, Brando had prepared for her, this long speech. But of course, the speeches at the Academy Awards are timed. You get a minute and that's it.
Especially if you're political, it can be shorter.
Totally. So she gave a much truncated version. And she said, "Hello, my name is Sacheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry." And then she has to pause because there's booing and stuff. And she says, "Excuse me." And then she continues on. "And on television in movie reruns. And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee. I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that we will in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity. Thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando."
Right.
This speech has been copyrighted by the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences.
And pass.
Yeah. So, according to her IMDb page, later in that same awards ceremony, which happened to be the first one that was televised around the world, because they had that technology.
That's
kind of why he picked it. Actor Michael Caine, who was one of the night's co-hosts, he criticized Brando.
But he does criticize everything.
But he said...
yes.
Letting some poor little Indian girl take the booze instead of standing up and doing it himself.
That is...
Which I can kind of
see.
I can kind of see that
No shade,
because
because
it is
I love me some Littlefeather.
right, exactly, and it also is some Brando.
Totally.
Going, wait
Absolutely.
a minute,
Absolutely.
you could have said this too,
Exactly.
son. Yeah,
And allegedly, Coretta Scott King,
yeah.
you know, Coretta
Oh,
Scott
yes.
King, she called Littlefeather to thank her for the speech.
Oh, that's very cool.
So there is a website, SacheenLittlefeather.net, and it's the only online site that's like officially her.
Right.
You can go to her, you can email her from there, her
cool.
mailing address is there. And I guess a lot of people made other websites or email accounts,
Yeah.
and this site says those are all fake and unauthorized.
Ah.
So, her Wikipedia page
Yeah.
claims that in 1979, she co-founded the National American Indian Performing Arts Registry.
Oh.
That was basically to help Native or Indigenous actors, you know, find acting roles.
Right. Yeah.
So this registry ended up helping several actors join the production of 1990's Dances with Wolves,
Oh, very cool.
starring Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
So in the 80s, she shared an Emmy Award as an advisor on PBS's 1984 program Dance in America, Song for Dead Warriors.
Gotcha.
Then in 1992, she worked on 2 other PBS shows that premiered that year. One is called Remember Me Forever, and the other one is The Americas Before Columbus.
Ooh, I like that.
She's also gone on to produce films on Native American health. Because she
Cool.
ended up going to college and getting a health degree, health-related degree.
Oh, very cool.
In 2009, she gave testimony in a documentary called Real Engine, real as in R-E-E-L,
Oh.
Real Engine,
Gotcha.
about Native Americans in film.
Oh, nice.
In 2019, IndianCountryToday.com published an article called After 45 Years, Sacheen Littlefeather reads the Oscars speech she wasn't allowed to give for the first time.
Wow.
And that article discusses an online radio program called Native Trailblazers.
Cool.
So on Friday, March 23rd, 2018, she joined the show's hosts, Dolores and Vincent Schilling, to discuss her night at the Oscars back in 1973, when she was only allowed to give that like 1-minute
Short version,
of
yeah.
Brando's refusal speech.
Ah.
On that program, on the radio show, unlike at the Oscars,
Right.
Littlefeather was finally able to read his entire speech.
Nice.
Afterwards, she told everybody, she revealed that it was the first time she'd ever been publicly allowed to give the speech that he wrote himself in its entirety.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
And
better
that-
late than never,
Totally.
but wow.
Totally. So earlier this year, in April 2021, FoxNews.com, with contributions from the Associated Press. It's okay.
Okay, all right. I see the
published
AP's
an
in
article
there. Okay.
called Sacheen Littlefeather, who rejected Marlon Brando's Oscar in 1973, says she was blacklisted by Hollywood.
I'm not surprised.
Not surprised
Yeah.
at all.
I mean,
So-
it sucks, but
Right.
yeah.
So the article discusses a film project on her life that's about her life after she gave her infamous Academy Awards speech. So the article's author, Stephanie Nolasco, writes that nearly 50 years later, the Native American actress has spoken out about how the stunning move ended her career. So Littlefeather is now considered an Apache elder, and she is the subject of a documentary that came out in 2018. It's a film short just called Sacheen. It details the speech she gave at the Oscar and its aftermath. So she says that Brando was delighted by her performance at the Oscars, giving that speech, and
because
she
he
was
didn't have to.
hella brave.
Yeah,
to do it.
exactly. She was doing the heavy lifting in
Totally.
this
She was doing
scenario.
the seriously
So,
like
I'm
Wonder
hoping.
Woman-ish heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But afterwards, after she gave the speech, she claimed that she felt abandoned by Brando, and I can totally see why, because she faced all of this intense backlash.
Yeah.
So, so she says she was blacklisted by Hollywood and never acted again.
Yeah. I don't think Brando would have been able to protect her in that blacklist either, though.
Probably.
I mean, he burned some bridges in there too.
Totally. So she goes on to say it was the first time anyone had made a political statement at the Oscars. This is something she says in the documentary. It was the first Oscars ceremony to be broadcast by satellite all over the world, which is why Marlon Brando chose it. She says, I didn't have an evening dress, so Marlon told me to wear my buckskin. That would be her Apache regalia. She said she could hear the boos and the jeers the minute she came on stage. Because I think the audiences kind of knew something was probably going to be up.
Yeah. They are a bunch of gossip queens.
Yes. And she also says in the documentary, later I learned 6 security guards had to hold back John Wayne, who was in the wings and wanted to storm the stage and drag me off.
I have some bad stories about John Wayne.
Yeah, don't we all?
That was
Anyway,
motherfucker.
So kind of like what she was saying was true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically. And it pissed off a white dude. What?
And imagine that John Wayne made his living
I
doing
know.
all these cowboy and Indian
That's
type
the
movies.
ironicness of a lot of his bullshit.
And it's kind of like she's going to side with the people you're always shooting at as the enemy in your movies. So, yeah, I'm just going to overlook that.
I know.
Good old Mr. Wayne. So anyway, so she, after the speech and after, she left the Academy Awards, she went to Brando's house. She says, he told me I'd done a good job. But, she also says, I was blacklisted.
Yeah.
Or you could say red listed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was ostracized everywhere I turned. No one would listen to my story or give me a chance to work.
Yeah.
And by the way, Brando passed away in 2004.
Okay. I remembered it was 2000s-ish.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
got
he
it.
was
Yeah.
80.
Gotcha.
All right. So this documentary was produced by One Bowl Productions.
Okay.
And if you, this is kind of a fun name.
Yeah.
So if you go to onebowlproductions.com, you can read a little write-up about the
documentary.
Film short. Yes.
Oh.
It's only 26 minutes long.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
So it's not very long. Sacheen Littlefeather, at this point is, she's an elder in, the White Mountain Apaches. She's a Yaqui elder. She obviously is a former actress. She's an activist. She's a dancer.
Yeah.
She's an educator. She's a writer. She still lives in Northern California. And this documentary is really her first opportunity to really tell her story.
It's an important story, yeah.
Exactly. So, and she, a lot of people, which is why this production group did this, feel that her voice was the first of many female voices, of brave women who have, they've decided I'm going to be heard, regardless of what anybody says. So,
exactly.
These days we've got, Standing Rock was not that long ago.
Exactly.
We've got the Black Lives Matter movement.
Happening now,
we've got the Me Too movement. We've got the Time's Up movement.
A lot of these are run by women.
Exactly. And so she's really kind of, in a lot of ways, like the beginning of that. I mean, kinda.
She at least gave us a visual example of if you can see it, you can be it. You know what I mean? Of using your voice and using your culture to be like, you know what? Not cool. Let's do better.
Right. So she says at one point, and I quote, "A society that does not recognize diversity is an atrocity."
Oh, that's good.
I'm kind of down with that.
Yes. I love how it rhymes.
Totally. She goes on to say that Brando chose the Academy Awards to make his statement because it was the first one that was going to be televised by satellite all over the world. He was extremely troubled that Hollywood was perpetuating these stereotypes.
He was also extremely troubled. Let's just also...
Well, there's also that, yeah. So Hollywood was perpetuating stereotypes we still deal with.
Yeah.
When it comes to Indigenous Americans now, because people have an expectation of what an quote unquote Indian looks like.
Right, exactly.
Or what they do or whatever. So a lot of people think, oh, they must have all died out because I don't see any.
Right.
When
they're just
walking
in
around
movies with
you.
John Wayne.
Totally. So, of course, there were all these racist tactics of defamation of character against her. She got death threats.
Oh.
She was labeled a B-movie actress. Some people called her a stripper, a puppet. Some people tried to say she wasn't really Indian and that instead she was just Mexican, although who is just Mexican? Like what? Like what? Anyway.
No.
Yeah, like backhanded compliment, can you say?
Right.
A lot of people said she was a fraud. She says there's an old saying, if you don't like the message, you kill the messenger.
Yes, absolutely.
And I was the messenger.
Yeah.
I was blacklisted. I was ostracized everywhere I turned. No one would listen to my story. Johnny Carson, Dick Cavett, and others who had shows didn't want me on their shows.
Interesting.
I never worked again in the industry. The doors were closed tight, never to reopen. But there's light at the end of this tunnel. So she, even though she was forced out of the Hollywood spotlight, she was really kind of introduced to another kind of spotlight. She went to work with Mother Teresa.
Oh my
I
goodness.
didn't realize. She founded the American Indian AIDS Institute.
Oh wow.
She traveled the world to study food systems. She became a health educator and, of course, formed the National American Indian Performing Arts Registry, which is a not-for-profit that encourages the film industry to hire
actual
Indigenous
people.
people
Yes, thank you.
to play Indigenous people. Ooh, what a concept!
What a
I
thought.
know.
My
Anyway.
goodness.
So as of this summer,
Yeah.
summer 2021, like I said, she still lives in Northern California. Unfortunately, she's been battling stage 4 breast cancer that has metastasized to her right lung.
Oh, crap.
So technically, she's terminally ill. And
Gotcha.
she says she feels like she's looking over the Grand Canyon of her life. She sees a lot of things and reflects on the wisdom that comes with the passing of time, and all with remarkable humor, which I thought was kind of nice.
That's a very nice way to look at it.
One more little thing to add.
Yeah.
In 2014, I think we might all remember that the 87th Academy Awards drew a lot of criticism for the lack of diversity in the various nominations.
Right. Oscars so white hashtag.
And the hashtag was Oscars so white.
Yeah, it was.
That began trending everywhere.
Well, because it was true.
Totally. And they had been so white for quite a while. I mean, I think about movies that I think, oh, this should be up for an award.
Yeah.
And then award season came.
Nothing.
And nothing. And I'm like, wow.
Interesting.
So anyway, allegedly, actress Jada Pinkett Smith,
Okay.
the wife of Will Smith,
Right, who got-
mother of Willow, and
Right, exactly.
Jaden.
Got a little mad.
Yes, she boycotted the ceremony that year, and she cited Sacheen Littlefeather as her inspiration.
She did.
Right.
And I love that brought that back, too.
Exactly.
Because I'm like going, wait a second.
Because
Long
somebody
history of women.
remembered the sacrifice that
Right.
Littlefeather made.
Speaking up for somebody else.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I mean, a lot of people said that Jada was, mad that Will wasn't nominated for Concussion.
True.
Because he did a fantastic job in that and was not nominated.
And frankly, he probably should have been nominated.
Yes, at least a nomination with that
Yes.
particular crop that was that year.
Exactly.
It did feel odd. Especially he was nominated for the Globes, for the Screen Actor. Like he was nominated everywhere
Like
else.
everywhere.
So it seemed very odd. So that was the only thing where the Sacheen, it felt separate from Marlon Brando because we didn't know them as as a couple or
Yes.
together. Where
Yes.
Jada speaking up for Will as well as speaking up for Oscar So White, it felt like she had skin in the game.
Yes.
But at the same time, her saying, how Sacheen inspired her, I'm like, okay, I get it. I see
Absolutely.
where her little kernel of
Yes,
inspiration came
exactly.
from.
So it's nice that things, that people remember her.
Yes.
And it's nice that people pay homage to her and the sacrifice she made.
And that they stand up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just personally, I've got a lot of... I really got up in my feelings about Marlon Brando.
Right.
I never really thought about it before
Oof.
until I was doing all of this because I've seen the clip. We've kind of all, Googled it and watched it on YouTube.
I feel like
or
it's on
whatever.
every Oscars montage as well. Like,
yeah.
let's look back at the
Right.
last 50 years.
Exactly.
There she is.
Exactly. But I really got all up in my feelings because I'm like, just I get the idea that you want to draw attention to an indigenous cause, indigenous discrimination, bigotry against indigenous people. And I understand the idea that, the best voice to voice those things are people who are of that ethnicity. So
Yes.
I get the idea
That you're trying not to be white savior,
right. I totally
but that you
get
still
that.
are being white savior.
But the problem is, I wonder if he, and I would like to think it never crossed his mind.
Right, his intention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, how can you not think that would tank her career? It's not like she had a Brando-sized career.
No, it was easily a sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
For the cause.
Yes.
Now, if he would have put aside money for her career, if he would have, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm going to pay for your college education so that you can have a livelihood beyond. That would have been something different.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That would have been
Yes.
using your power and your influence and your money
Right.
to make sure
Because
somebody
I'm
else's life
going
was
to-
ruined.
Yeah, so because I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you to do this, and, because she was still young.
Yeah.
When this happened.
Oh, yeah. She's a baby.
Yeah, so it's kind of like she may not have realized that it would tank her career,
Right.
but he had to know that there would at least be some bad backlash.
He knows Hollywood. At that point, he knew Hollywood and how mean they were.
I mean, hello, he lived through the 50s with the
McCarthy
era.
Exactly.
And the blacklisting of the actors.
He
and all
knows how
that.
bad it can be.
Absolutely.
I just watched a documentary about Rita Moreno, and Rita Moreno had an on again, off again thing like 15, 20 years with Brando where he needed her when he needed her and discarded her when. So I worry that that's also a pattern because this was around that same time of using women for what he needed them for.
Right.
But I want to give him just a tiny, 10% hope that he's trying to do a good thing.
Yeah.
90% let me just find a sacrificial lamb.
Yes. And it also makes me wonder because obviously, there's a stigma about talking about mental health issues now.
Oh, yeah. Then.
And definitely then it wasn't what you talked about, especially if you were famous and whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of like, was he a little
unstable
and needing, some intervention, some
Always.
professional intervention, whatever.
Right.
And so maybe he didn't quite have the clarity
right.
to make
and who's going to call him on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Brando.
Yeah. Stella!
I know. And this is right after Godfather where everybody's like, oh, we totally forgot what a genius Brando was. And I'm like, did you? Did you really forget?
Because he's going to make you a deal that you can't pass up,
exactly.
or however the line goes.
Make an offer you can't refuse.
Yes, exactly. So anyway. So that's my gal pal.
I love knowing more about her now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So anybody have any questions?
Dun, dun, dun. Have you ladies ever seen her acceptance, non-acceptance speech in a little montage thing?
I had not, so that's what I was doing. Eden.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at pictures of her.
Yes, there you go.
Giving
See if
this
it
speech.
kind of
Yeah,
give you
I was like on my
context.
phone, and I'm like, I'm really paying attention. I just need a visual to go with
Which
this
is
story.
fine.
I do that all the time.
If you go to YouTube and in the search bar you type in Sacheen Littlefeather Oscar speech
Right.
or Marlon Brando,
Even Brando Oscar speech, yeah.
Yeah, it'll come up and it can't be longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it starts out with the two, announcing our next category is,
Right.
and our nominees are, And then it ends with her
Awkwardness.
leaving the stage.
And they're like, what do I do with this statue
Totally.
now?
But you know what? To his credit, I mean, Roger Moore, like ever the British gentleman, you know, he didn't make a big deal. He just went with the flow.
Right, exactly.
And kept it moving. So he just held on to it and walked off, you know. As
Very
they all
British.
walked off. Totally. A highly British moment.
I do not have feelings about this whatsoever.
So anyway, okay, well, that wraps it up for us this week. Join us next week for our next gal pal, who will share her one cool thing as Gal's Guide podcast continues. Thanks for listening.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.